Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Seasons Ebb and Flow for the season of divorce and beyond. My name is Lee Wright. I am a divorce coach, and I interview people with every topic related to divorce. And today I'm interviewing Kelly Collins. She is a divorce lending professional, a certified divorce lending professional, and she works with people to figure out what their best solution is with their family home, to keep it, to sell it, how to plan for the future. So I'm going to let Kelly tell us a little bit more about what she does. Thank you for being here, Kelly.
Well, thank you, Lee, so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talking to your audience today. So, I have been in real estate or mortgage for over 20 years. And throughout that process, there have been so many, mostly women, because I'm a woman, most of the time women come to me, but men and women that come to me and after they have gone through the divorce, after they have had the stressful time of writing their divorce decrees, and then just we struggle to do the mortgage with maybe the way that support's set up, or maybe the way the divorce decree's written, we can't do it. Then they got to go back to court and get an amendment because they don't qualify for 6 months or something like that. So I actually partnered with the Divorce Lending Association this past year and learned how to get in front of the problem. So instead of being totally reactive, we're being proactive and helping take the stress away so that you
Mhm.
can really plan post divorce for your living situation. And I truly believe real estate is one of the best investments you can have to grow wealth for you and your family. And so a divorce shouldn't ruin the ability to do that for anybody.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. Like figuring out your real estate situation, like for one, your home is your security, your feeling of safety. And so figuring that out and hopefully doing it very strategically, maybe working with professionals, it gives you that peace of mind that you have a place to protect your family and sleep at night. And yeah, so important.
Absolutely. When you're going through a divorce, there's so many things you're coming at you that you just don't know how to reply to. And you need to have people in your corner to help you with every step. And so that's why a divorce coach is important. That's why your therapist is important. That's why your attorney is important. But also, people miss the mortgage side, the financial planning side, and things like that. So, I'm
Mhm.
hopefully here to help people learn a little bit more and understand the importance of having a full divorce team in their corner.
Yes, I 100% agree. The last thing you want to do is not get support and advice from professionals, and then you realize a year or two down the road that you should have set up your settlement differently or asked for different things. Because then it's locked and
Yeah.
aside from child support, and you just have to make do. So
Brennan Barrett.
yeah, exactly. So getting the information up front is worth the extra effort, time, and sometimes money. But yeah. So what are some things that people should be thinking about when they are trying to make the decision about whether to keep the family home or buy the other person out or sell? Um,
So, a lot of times when I'm having these consultations, they can be really emotional. Um, so, one thing is talk to somebody. Do you have kids involved? Do you need that stability, even if it's for a short period of time, like a year, to stay put so nothing else in your life changes? Or is there, you got to get out of that house, but you can't afford the apartment down the street that's going to cost you $2,500 a month? So let's go try to find a house. And so it's about bringing that stability in And then, so emotional side, that's where professionals like you come in. Then the actual practical side. So I sit down, I hope that everybody works out a budget based on post-divorce life. That's something that most people don't do when they're married. And so the importance of one, learning how to budget, what can you truly afford? What is my financial life going to look like with all of the household expenses that now I'm taking on myself? And what am I going to need as far as support? Do I have an emergency fund to rely on? Because now I'm going to be a single income household. Um, how much room do I need? Do I have 4 kids and 2 dogs? And can we fit in a little townhome? Or are we going to need something bigger? And then that also goes into, well, do I have to stay where I'm at? And if I do, how do I give my ex the equity that is theirs and it not cost me a fortune? And some people just go get a personal loan for 18.5%, and you add that payment, you can't afford to live.
No.
And
Yeah, the
and
last thing we want is to be totally house poor. Like a lot of people are very, very attached to their family home, and that is understandable. There's so many memories, and you feel like your kids are attached to it, and keeping it might be the right decision, but it might not. And trying to look at the numbers as much as the emotions is important, I think. Because I feel like post-divorce, if you keep the house, but then that's all your money every month goes to it, and that means you can't go on vacation with your kids and things like that. There's a balance point where keeping the home might make everything else so much more difficult. So,
exactly. And that's why a budget and actually looking at the numbers, because numbers don't lie.
yeah.
Everything else can be manipulated, but numbers are numbers.
Yeah.
And
I know, and
so
everybody dreads making a budget, me included. I hate making the budget, looking at the budget, trying to stick to a budget. And I think so many of us just avoid it altogether. But once you sit down and do it, it's not as awful as it feels like it's going to be.
it becomes easier after you get attuned to it, but it's not something we're taught
Yeah,
ever. And so, unless you go out of your way to learn it, and so my approach as a lending professional is a little different because I help people with the budgeting piece first, because we got to figure out, can you afford to stay in the home? Um, and there's so many things that go into it. But again, real estate is the best way historically to build wealth. And
mm,
so I truly believe that everybody should own real estate at some point in their life. And it needs to be a part of your plan. Whether, and then, so in my personal situation, I stayed in my home for 2 years after my divorce because that's what my boys needed. I did not want to be in that house.
right.
But that's what my boys needed to have that security. So I took that time. We stayed there. I didn't put too much money into it. But then what happened is I took that time. I gained equity over those 2 years. I had a really low payment because we bought the home 20 years earlier. And now I've got this beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood. My boys and I are so happy, but it was because I kept the home and I was able to do that.
Right.
And there's so many other ways that people just, you got to think about it on a numbers situation. So I actually had a gentleman come to me. He was trying to keep the house so that his girls will feel that continuity. But they're in their divorce decree, because I didn't catch him beforehand. He
Mm,
agreed to, within 2 months of the divorce, $180,000 equity buyout. Their interest rate was 2.5%. And so he had to figure out a way to come up with that. And to get a personal loan or even a home equity line of credit was going to cost him a ton of money. So
Yeah,
what we did is I laid out 5 different scenarios for him side by side, and we figured out the best way to do it post the divorce decree. But if we would have gotten together beforehand, we would have chatted about maybe it would have been worth paying her alimony for a few years instead of that lump sum buyout.
for sure.
Because it would have cost him less. He wouldn't have had to pay interest on
Exactly.
that stuff. Or saying, hey, we'll do the lump sum buyout in several different installments type
Yeah,
thing. Those are things they didn't even think about because they've got
mhm,
18 million other things to go on.
exactly.
So
And I think
I'm
like as wonderful as some attorneys are, some of them either haven't been doing it for long enough to have thought and seen every creative option out there, or they're just not as focused on creative solutions when it comes to finances. So I'm not at all bashing attorneys, but I think it's great to speak with someone like you who can help people look at every option. Like my ex and I did something that I think is somewhat unusual, but um I was I got the house in our settlement, but our house was in his name only at the time when we got divorced. And so he agreed to keep himself on the loan for 3 years but give me the deed under my name with the trust that I would pay the mortgage every month, which I did. And then within 3 years, I refinanced. And we did that just to give me time to figure everything out financially and get a decent loan because at the time we had just moved back here from out of the country. So I wasn't working. And so it would have been really hard to get a good mortgage. Um, and then I refinanced and luckily I got a great interest rate and now the mortgage is only in my name, but um I think that depending on how the two parties are working together, there are ways to make it work so that you keep more money within the family, you know?
exactly. Well, and divorce attorneys, they're fantastic, but they are more focused typically on the children, which they should be.
Mhm.
They're focused on a lot of these other things. And then mortgage guidelines, I do this day in and day out, and I still have to go read mortgage guidelines on a daily basis. So divorce attorneys, they've got so many other things to focus on. There's no way they can know what a guideline is and how to
Right.
make that work for somebody. So
Yes.
that's where a lot of the divorce attorneys that I partner with, they're like, go ask Kelly. Go
Yeah.
ask Kelly, let her tell us what we need to do as far as the house and what
Mm.
that means for what you need in the divorce decree as far as alimony and child support. And then I write it out, and when mediation time comes, we're saving time because there's no 3 hour long mediation over it. It's nope, that doesn't work. This is what works, period. So we're
Yeah.
saving money, we're saving time on all of those things because we already know what works.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the overlooked option of loan assumptions. So in your
Mm-hmm.
situation, a loan assumption you do have to qualify for, but for most government backed loans, I say most, you can go to the lender and assume the mortgage.
Oh,
But
I did not
uh,
know that.
but it's a process. It's not fun. You have to have somebody in your corner because you're talking with a call center person every time you call, and they move
Yes.
slowly. So you also have to make sure in the divorce decree that there's a good 6 months available for you to get that done.
Okay. Huh. Okay, yeah, that's a new thing that I did not know about. So good to know.
Yeah, there's lots of strategies out there, and it's important to really just, does that make sense? Or A lot of times during the equity buyout phase, somebody
Mm-hmm.
will say, okay, I'm just going to buy you out. It'll be fine. And I actually had a client here in my town who was self-employed, and they she took lots of deductions on her tax returns. So when it came time for the equity buyout, she didn't qualify.
Yeah.
And so, in order to get her to qualify, we had to get really creative with the financing, do a non-traditional bank statement loan, which cost
Mhm.
more. So her
Yeah.
interest rate was going to be higher. And in the divorce decree, it said that he was going to split closing costs. And then there was an argument. They had to get attorneys back involved, whether or not
Ah,
that included points, but we had to have points on that type loan for her.
right.
And so if they would have come to me beforehand, I would have given them the numbers and been like, closing cost has to include this for the type of loan that we have to do for you. And
Right.
she almost lost her house because he was threatened to take her back to court if he didn't have the equity by a certain time. And she
Oh,
wanted to keep it
gosh.
for her kids.
Yeah. Wow. It is the upfront payment to a professional saves you so much sometimes in the long run. It really does.
It,
Because
it just saves your mental ability to focus on anything in life. It's worth
yes,
it.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think when someone comes to you and they are thinking like, I really do want to keep the family home, and you look at their budget and it looks like it's going to be tight, what are different things you give them to think about or consider?
So we throw in, okay, are you asking for alimony and child support? Do you think that's going to be something in there? Because we're seeing a lot of the amicable divorces. We're like, I'm not asking for alimony. I want to be done. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to have it.
Yeah,
Because you're going from a two-income household where one person is a total breadwinner, the other works for a great nonprofit doing great work, but doesn't make
yeah,
any money.
yes,
And yes, you just want a clean split. You don't want to hurt the other person, but there's ways to do that where it's got to be fair for both parties. And
absolutely.
so alimony, child support, something we look at. I mean, I've also had very strong conversations with, yes, you have this job, you've been here for so long, but it might be time to go try to find a new job where you can make more money and afford it. Because now you've got to be able to pay for all these things.
Hmm.
And nobody wants to hear that when they're going through all the changes,
Yeah.
but sometimes it just has to be said.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I remind my clients that like your first 2 or 3 years post divorce is kind of a refiguring out financial settlement foundation. Like you're on rocky terrain for a little bit. And so you just need to be very conscious of finances and be smart and think about careers. And I definitely advocate that alimony is not a bad word. Like you can think of it almost as like a runway to give you a little bit of time to get yourself reestablished so that your kids aren't living in one household that can barely put food on the table and another household that has every gadget and vacations. And for them that's confusing. Like, why
Yeah.
is it that I go back and forth and there's just such a stark difference? Like, that's not even healthy for the children, let alone the parents. So yeah, it's interesting. When I was separated for a long time before we got divorced, so I had started dating during my divorce, and one guy said to me, I'll give you some advice from based on like I've now been on dates with a lot of women post divorce. And he said, so many of them have said to me, I wish I wasn't so quick to just throw in the towel when things got a little tough during the divorce. And I didn't advocate for myself enough. And now I'm really struggling. He's like, so we only had one date, but it was like the best date because the advice he gave me, he's like, just advocate for yourself, to make sure that you have enough money and time to get yourself on your feet. And I was like, okay, thank you. That was really good. Like, during the divorce, when I was thinking like, oh, I just want this over. I don't care. I'll sign any settlement. Uh, I would think about that and be like, no, you just have to stick it out through the hard part of this process because you have to set yourself up to like be successful long term, and you need a little bit of help in the beginning. So,
Well, and that's why having somebody else validate your finances and tell you it's okay to need these things, it makes it will take not only the just stress about divorce, it'll cost less money because you're spending less time and all these mediations, getting less attorney time and all that kind of stuff. But it's good peace of mind after divorce because well, I'm not going to talk for everybody. I was completely emotionally broken. Divorce
yeah,
came as a complete shock to me. And every time I turned around, I found out something new. It felt like I was constantly getting hit with like bean bags or something.
right.
And so there just came times where, and I'm smart, I'm in the mortgage industry. I didn't get a home inspection before I bought my house out.
Oh,
I
goodness.
know that we did. We had a lot of deferred maintenance because my ex wouldn't do anything. So
Yes.
I I knew to get it, but sitting there in mediation that day, I had just been pelted by so many things. I was like, I'm done. I mean, we are on hour 12 and it is time for me to go eat.
Yeah.
Um, so having somebody kind of remind you and write out a list for you so you don't have to think about it because this is not your
Mhm.
day-to-day job.
Yes.
And what worked for your best friend is not going to work for you in your situation. Every single person's situation is different.
So true.
That's why you can't go and ask all your friends what you do and then copy them because you might
Right.
have a completely different financial situation.
Yeah, I know every divorce is unique. Every family situation is unique. Every parenting plan is going to look different. It's great to get insight from other people, but then it's not a copy and paste situation.
No, you need somebody that is going to deep dive and has actually, knows the ins and outs to help you figure out, okay, can I keep the house?
Hmm.
Or should I try to sell it?
Hmm.
Um, but like I just kind of mentioned just a minute ago, people who are keeping a house, get a home inspection. Make sure that after you close, because everything's your responsibility after you close on your loan and write that deed over, make sure the AC is in good working condition. The roof is
Yes.
in good working condition. There's no termites. Like make sure, like just like if you're buying a house, your
Hmm.
realtor's going to tell you those things. Do
Yes.
that for yourself. It's $500. But that
Yes.
way, when you're
It's so
negotiating,
worth it.
yeah, it's so worth it. Because if your AC is on its last leg, you just gave them all that equity.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness, what's going to happen?
Yeah,
You're
I
responsible.
knew when we were in our discuss, I knew that I needed a new roof. My roof was like 25 years old, and I'd already like had challenges with the insurance companies wanting to drop us, and somehow I was able to like get them to let us stick with the roof. The roof had no issues. It had no leaks,
Mhm.
but they reach a point where they're like, okay, we're going to drop you. And
Yep.
so when we were in mediation, I'd already gotten estimates for a new roof so that like I had that information when we were talking about the house of like, okay, I'm gonna have to put on a new roof. So let's account for that cost
Yep.
when we're talking about the house. But yeah, I think it's really helpful to have all of those pieces of information. I had asked a realtor to give me an estimate of what they would list our house for and what they thought we would be able to sell for. And then my ex ended up deciding he wanted to actually get an appraisal. And I think we
Mhm.
used like a number in between what the real estate agent and the appraiser said the house was worth in order to like figure out the numbers. But yeah, the more planning and research and information you have when you're in there discussing the settlement, the better.
Absolutely. And I mean, it needs to be, there's so much that goes into it. So I also had a client that I worked with last week. She's successful. She's like, I'm not asking for alimony. I just want to be done. But my daughter's going to be here for another 2 years, then she's going off to college. Then I don't need this house. So she's going to stay in the house. She is going to do an equity buyout. She goes, I just want everything to be 50-50. We're not going after 401ks or anything like that. I was like, okay, great. But so when we got to it, she didn't qualify for the equity buyout. Her
Right.
debt to income ratio was like this much too small. So what we did is there's guidelines again. There's a difference between a cash out refinance and a rate term refinance. Cash out refinance, where you're also paying off debt and stuff, and that the rates are typically a little bit higher, and you can't go as high on the loan to value. So you can only take out so much. A rate term, you can get a little bit of higher loan amount. So what we did is I'm like, well, take this, let's say it's $70,000. $70,000 you're going to give him, but we've got this auto loan and these two credit cards. You pay those off. You don't have those. You are
Mm,
going to, you can
yeah.
qualify for the house, and we're going to save you $1,900 a month.
Wow.
And so what we did is we wrote it in the divorce decree that he was to pay off those things
Yes.
plus get his $70,000. So instead of 70, it was like, I don't know, $100,000 he got at closing. Then he paid off
Right.
those things. She now has
Brilliant.
$1,900 a month in cash flow, qualified for the mortgage, and it just made everything smoother. And the attorney called me and goes, I didn't know we could do this.
Yes, that's
I said,
brilliant.
yes, this is why you look at things.
Yes. Yeah. You look at the whole picture. The whole picture, and then you can figure out how to move the pieces in order to reach the goal of whether it's keep the house, buy the house, sell the house, whatever it is. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Uh, so if people want to work with you to have you consult, and can they have you consult with them even if they live in other states than you live in?
Yes, so for the divorce mortgage planning, I am not restricted to a certain state. So I can talk to anybody, and I've also got a network of other professionals all over the country. So if there's somebody that says, I live in Illinois and I really want to sit down with somebody face to face, I can connect them with somebody there as well. So because this is something that can very easily be done via Zoom, it can be done in person, and we screen share our divorce mortgage planning report. And it's a fully detailed report saying you do X, Y, and Z, this is what you need. And I can work with anybody all over the country. So it's just a great thing to do.
Okay, that is awesome. And where, if someone wanted to reach out to you, I'll put it in the show notes as well, but can you tell us where people can find you?
Absolutely. So I will share with you the link to my landing page for the divorce mortgage planning. And we also have a newsletter that people can sign up for on that page that just
Okay.
talks about things to think about when you're going through divorce, what equity buyouts are, and stuff like that. I am also on Facebook at the Kelly Collins Group. And I will share my phone number. They are welcome to call or email me as well anytime.
Okay, that is excellent. Um, I think this was so helpful. I feel like we've covered all our questions, but if you have like any additional examples or case studies that you wanted to share or anything that you think other people should hear.
Absolutely. So I actually have one up. So I'm looking at my screen right
Yeah.
here with this gentleman's case study. He had an $1,800 a month mortgage payment, and he's going to pay child support because he goes, I don't care what it is, my kids need something. They're not going without.
Mm,
And so he just agreed to whatever she asked for child support. And then he goes, but I'm keeping this house. And so I said, okay. And he agreed to $100,000 equity buyout, which actually, by the time we got the appraisal, was way more than 50% equity buyout.
mm,
But we went through 5 different options. One was, let's just get it to the lowest rate possible. His payment was going to go up $700 a month
mm,
because he had a 2% interest rate. So he didn't qualify due to the line of credit equity. He didn't qualify for the loan to value on to get a a HELOC, basically a
right.
second mortgage for it. So what we did is we went back and we got with a family member. They gifted him the money for the equity buyout. And
Mm,
then we are watching rates to go to a certain point so that then, and within a year, we can go and refinance the home and pay off the family member. He kept the house,
mm,
and um, just child support was a lot, and he agreed to it. I'm like,
mhm.
you don't need to agree to it. You can always pay more, but agree to the
Right.
minimum.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. So
but
I
he agreed.
wonder, you could agree to the minimum. Why didn't they then like, I guess, agree to the minimum and then add alimony or
So basically, the wife was just concerned about child support. She wasn't
mm,
concerned about alimony. I think there was a reason why. Um, but she was focused on child support, and the calculation said he only owed $700 a month, and she wanted 1,500.
okay.
And he goes, it's for my kids.
Yeah.
I'll pay it. But what could have happened is that he would agree to the 700. He maybe would have qualified for a little bit more mortgage. We
Mm-hmm.
could have moved things around just a little bit. Um, and then he could have just wrote her a check for an extra $700 a month.
Right. Right.
And it would have all been fine. But
Yeah.
because we didn't consult with all of that first, or actually probably got a little way emotional, he didn't follow all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But um, but yeah, those kind of things. And then when you're self-employed, I've worked with multiple self-employed people trying to buy a home post-divorce. So let's say they got their equity buyout. They've got this $200,000 lump sum of money and they want to go buy a house.
Right.
And they deduct everything on their tax returns and it looks like they make $20,000 a year.
Right.
They don't qualify.
Yeah.
So I need to see tax returns. We need to help plan. This is where we bring in another professional like the CPA to figure out, how do we qualify somebody for this? Or can we take that $200,000, put it in a trust and create trust income,
Oh,
which can
interesting.
then be used as qualifying income.
Huh. Oh, wow.
So lump sum buyouts can cause issues for, I mean, especially stay-at-home moms. I've seen
Yeah,
stay-at-home moms get $500,000 and they need that to live off of, but they're like, oh, I could go buy a $300,000 house. But then
exactly.
if they do that, they're only going to be left with $200,000 to pull from for this income. They
Yeah,
can't live.
right.
So we can create a trust with that $500,000, give them some income. They can keep a little part-time job and then they qualify.
Huh. That is amazing. Yes, so
So,
clever.
and that's another really great thing about what I do in this divorce lending association that I'm a part of, is that if we get something super complicated, there's 100 other of us that we bounce ideas off of.
Mm, nice.
And just the focus is trying to help people.
Yeah.
Divorce was so stressful for me. And
Mm,
I'm in the business. I didn't think about half of this stuff. And then afterwards, I'm sitting there 3 months later. I'm like, why didn't I ask about this? Why did I
uh-huh.
agree to that?
I know.
And and our attorneys, they're smart. Their job is to negotiate the best deal possible. But a lot of them, post divorce, post that agreement being signed, they don't, the clients don't go back and be like, hey, just so you know, I shouldn't have written it like that way because now I don't
Yeah.
qualify for anything. So they
Yes.
don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, I mean, so that's where just bring in professionals to help
Mm-hmm.
you through your divorce. You need the mental, the emotional, the financial, just
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And bringing that team in is going to save you so much stress.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like pay a little bit up front and you save so much on the back end. And
So
uh,
much.
it's just a lot of people don't even know that these professionals are out there. That's part of it. Like the divorce machine, all people know is lawyers and mediators and court. And it's like there's so many other people who are out there to provide support and guidance um
And
and
most of us, we do it because we have a heart for it and we've been through it and we don't want everybody to make the same mistakes we did.
exactly. Yes. You learn after you've gone through it. You're like, man, if I had known that, or if someone, like, I'm just so glad that one guy told me that on a date. But if
Please.
I feel like that's when I'm working with clients and they're starting to get like, oh, I just need this to be over. And I can tell that they're ready to just give everything away and that they're going to be struggling and regretting it a year from now. I'm like, okay, just breathe where you do not, we can take a pause. Like,
Yep.
so having other people there as that sounding board is just so helpful.
So helpful. And I'm so glad that there's professionals like you to help people too, because that's something I didn't do either, is get a divorce coach. So,
Mhm.
hey, friends yapping in the background, and
Yes.
it was a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah, it is. Well, I really appreciate your time and all the different ideas that you even shared today are such a good start for people. And definitely, if they have more questions, they should be reaching out to you.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help anybody with any of their issues like this, even if it is just putting together a budget.
Awesome. Well, Kelly, I really appreciate your time. Thank you to everybody who has listened. And please, if you like the content, subscribe, send us some comments or questions. And I will put all of Kelly's information in the show notes so you can find her and reach out to her. And thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.